So you were saying?
I took some relaxation time and not just like periodically a little bit here and there. It was like 2 days of playing and free and swinging on the swing and not a list of things to do. And so it felt like an amazing reset to come back and get aligned and I guess not even really get aligned. Just it was a break.
Sure.
Shut my mind off and enjoy nature, really.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't had one of those days in quite a long time. I feel like I'm just constantly busy.
Yeah. It has been a really long time for me too. And so to be able to do it for 2 days in a row was fantastic. I want to do it again.
Maybe it's like that's my calling right there. I need to get out and have a nature day or two here coming up.
Once a month, I would say.
Okay.
I mean, I don't get it very often like that. Usually there's something to do or some kind of navigation in my day. But 2 days of it was, I mean, it's my natural element. I love to be outside. If I'm not outside, I feel out of place, I guess, especially when that sun's shining. And so, yeah.
Yeah, I remember, so I used to do these little nature walks with my son, and then it was kind of an excuse to first off getting out of the house. But then I just, for the practice sake and just having the home video or whatever, I'd bring my camera along and we'd do the thing where we'd like place the camera on the trail and then just kind of walk for a little bit. And then it's still recording. You have yourself like running back to grab the camera again, but you just in the cuts, it seems like we're just like walking in the woods with some invisible cameraman or whatever. So I need to do that here coming up. It's been some pretty nice weather.
Yeah, my son, he fishes. He loves to fish. He's a fisherman. But I used to take him out and we'd find just random places all the time to fish. This year's been different though. They're teenagers and they kind of have their own way. So I waited for a little while. Like I was trying to like, hey, like it normally was, but now they're kind of on their own journey and their own mission of doing their thing.
Sure.
So I had to accept that.
Right. Well, it gives you some more free time, I guess.
It really does. Yeah. I had to learn to fill my cups there. Like, what do I want to do with that time? And, because it became overwhelming because I was so used to that being my dedication. Right. Like, what are they doing? I have to make sure that they're on this. And once I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I've guided you here. What you do with that time is up to you. Now, I would still guide them in that direction, but I wasn't going to wait, so I don't want to teach them to wait on people. So I started dipping out of the house at 8:00 in the morning, right. And now they're doing their thing. So my kids went swimming today at their Uncle Bubba's and gave me an opportunity to be here.
Sure. There you go.
Yeah.
So, as I was kind of explaining earlier, this is more for the audience, I guess, is we were kind of talking the other day, came over to jam out, and we kind of got on a long discussion. I said, that'd be pretty cool to just talk about that on a podcast. And that's kind of like how this came about or whatever. And I think I'm a little bit loud, so I'm going to scoot back.
All right.
But what I was going to say is we got onto the topic of, I guess, just belief and spirituality in general. And I think that the thing that was nice about that conversation is that while both of us have kind of different views, we were still able to just kind of like learn about each other, have the discussion. And it was kind of like a good example of just a conversation that would regularly in kind of a public sphere, especially on the internet, can very quickly spiral. But it's like when you do this in person, almost never, does it get out of hand or, things get ruffled or whatever. I've seen it in a few cases where it has happened. But,
where conflict actually takes place because somebody feels the need to defend their beliefs.
Right.
And what was really great about that when we were able to talk about that, we had like an hour and a half conversation about it.
Sure.
Is we both created that space, for we didn't feel like we had to defend or anything like that, but there was
Right.
this beautiful space that was created to allow us to be in our own presence with it. And so, and accept each other there, not try to change your opinion about it or you trying to change mine. It was just a beautiful discussion of perspective
Right.
in our own personal world.
Sure. And I think that that's the thing that I like the most about it is that I don't get to explain very often kind of where I'm coming from on that, because obviously people, when they hear that I'm, for example, an atheist, there are like kind of some assumptions that are made, and I just know, I'm just like, I've lived this now for quite a long time. I grew up Catholic, but I know that there are with some religious people kind of assumptions made. And the one comment that I remember you saying that I would honestly just say I don't hear super often from somebody who's kind of like more of a believer in, spiritual practice or, even theology or whatever, which you said you're not so much into theology, like organized religion, right?
Right. I believe that, there's just so many of them, and
Sure.
and I told you, if somebody said that, they close their eyes and they believe in a unicorn and that's their higher power, or that's, what guides them through,
Right.
then great,
Sure.
like you have that,
Right.
and so I've just heard it in so many ways because I'm broad, I'm more of a philosopher, so I've expanded on many different cultures. And so I accept people's beliefs there, but I
Sure.
also have my own where if it feels limited, I don't want to inherit that. I feel like
Right.
our life is limitless, and we have many, many possibilities. And so I don't want to, place that small belief of, religion or even tradition for that
Right.
matter to limit myself or others. So,
Yeah. So I guess just to finish that thought out, we kind of like took a few turns there,
yeah.
but to finish the thought out is that I have noticed, and this is from first person experience, that very often people who are it doesn't even really matter the belief. We don't even have to say a certain belief. It's like you're a binary situation here, and we can talk more about that in terms of what is belief and what is knowledge, which are two completely separate things.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, the assumption is made that is like, and the best I can explain it, not being a believer, and I think I've even had a few people explain this to me, is like, this is something that's so core to their being that they imagine to not have that would be terrible, right? Like, oh my gosh, how could you not have that? And that's fine. And I can empathize with that position. But I think as we talked a little bit more, we found out, and I agree with, everybody has still this inner person. You can call it a spirit if you want. I'm not one of those atheists that's going to argue semantics until we're dead in the face, because it doesn't get to the core discussion. The core discussion is, do you believe in something or do you not believe in something? And then the next discussion is like, why? And the why really just, for me, comes out to be, I've studied enough things myself and opposing opinions.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, don't think that it's true. I mean, belief is not a choice. You either believe something or you don't.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I can choose to believe. You can choose to not seek out truth. So I guess that ignorance technically could be a choice into belief. That's the kind of like a bad word though. But I'm saying it in the genuine sense of just, I simply do not want to learn.
Mm-hmm.
If there's something else out there that might be different, a person could say, I don't even care to look at it.
Well, on a personal level, if I don't seek the knowledge of something and I am having an opinion on it, I feel like it is personal ignorance.
Yes.
Oh. So to put it on a broader spectrum like that. But it kind of takes me to my hermetic, which is something that is within me, is all and nothing, and in any given moment, we could, jump all in, or we can just stand there and do nothing. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think maybe that's the beautiful array of us being able to sit here and talk about that, is because, yeah, we both accept that.
Sure. And I mean, I want to say this just so that, anybody that's watching this takes, that I'm like in good faith making this statement or whatever. When I say like things or words kind of like ignorance, I'm kind of like a Bill Nye science guy. Like I explain things in a very direct route.
Yeah.
Every single person is ignorant of something.
Oh,
this is,
yes.
This is, I'm just saying,
it.
It's not a thing saying that, oh, because you're X, you're ignorant. No, it's just, I'm saying a person can even choose to be ignorant, but you are, in fact, ignorant about many things. I have no clue other than put my mouth up to it and blowing how to play a tuba. Mm-hmm. I'm ignorant of that,
I'm not a mechanic.
Right?
If I go trying to tear my engine out of my car, it's not going to work out.
Yeah, and I'm just saying that there often when I have this conversation, and I personally do it because I enjoy keeping up on the arguments, because logic is something that they can never take away from you. It's a knowledge that can never be taken away from you until your life is gone, or your ability to reason. Maybe you could get injured, but
maybe
that's
the experience with that knowledge, or what did you say they can't take away from you? Logic.
Well, your knowledge and logic is a piece of that,
logic with
right?
Experience,
right?
And creating knowledge of that, sure. Maybe. I mean, we were gonna move into that, so it kind of, with the logic and the experience, that is where my knowledge has come from. So you were kind of talking earlier about, a non-belief, or if they had lost that.
Sure.
I went through an experience where I put it aside. I felt as though it was, I guess, dangerous for me. I kind of told you about my PTSD situation, sure. And life and death situation is what it really was. And,
right.
And so I set it aside. I really did. Like everything, I did keep my meditation because it made me feel better. Like sure. I was numb, really numb.
I wouldn't consider meditation to be it can be, but I'm saying like a person could be a non-believer and still meditate.
Mindfulness. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. And so I kept that. But then, after I was able to really recover and get out of psychosis and things like that,
sure.
I left my journey a little bit without it. And there was a point where me personally, I wanted those things back. I started incorporating them again because I realized how helpful they were for me.
Sure.
But I would never impose that. It's really just like a suggested thing that might help. If we have anxiety or we're overstressed, like being overstressed is so hard on our body.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 3 months of my psychosis, I got to see that it wasn't that I was, taking anything extra or anything like that. It was merely like stress in the brain. Sure. And it aged me. Yeah. It really aged me. And so to be able to share what has helped me with that, it's just a suggestion and
right.
something I want to put out into the world so it exists.
Yeah. And I guess that moves us into really, just because I go over and debate people on the internet about it, we talked about a time and a place, right?
Yes.
So if I'm over and I see somebody making like a philosophical argument, I'm thinking, hey, they're proposing a thing. Mm-hmm. So then I will engage in it in good faith, just saying, hey, I actually know, what Pascal's wager is, for example. It's a pretty common, explanation, or people try to use it as an explanation for a, or not a God.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask you. Okay.
So I
can
was
you
just going to
explain that a
say,
little bit?
so the Pascal's wager is saying that the wager being, if there is a God and one believes in the God, then they get eternal salvation. If there is not a God and a person, or excuse me, if you don't believe in the God, then you get eternal judgment or pain. And then the other one is, and the other side of the coin is that if there is not a God and you believe in a God, you're not out really anything, which I would argue you kind of are, because you're doing practices that are kind of, I guess if it enriches you, then not a big deal. But just imagine if somebody is in a religion that the practices are actually kind of grueling, like flagellating yourself, for example, is like, I know people have done that for religious practice.
Is it like piercings? Or?
No, like taking a whip and just whipping their back is like kind of a form of penance. Mm-hmm. So just imagine if there was no God and you were doing that. It's kind of like, dang, and I'm not like trying to make fun of it or anything. If that's how somebody, it's a little jarring for me being an American. And, of course I served in the militaries, but I'm just saying, like, you ain't going to catch me flagellate myself.
No, I don't want to whip myself. No, even if that's what the guys are telling me to do, I'm like, yes, yeah. No, I'm not doing it.
I'm just saying.
I'd rather not. Yeah, and there's also like the big piercings and things like that. There's so many things that are taboo as far as that goes. Do you want to do it? Do you not want to do it? And that's where I think personal preference and what would personal knowledge about yourself really, really, it blends, it correlates, it collaborates.
Sure.
Because if you know that's something you're not going to do, to whether it be worship self or worship higher self or God or universe or energetic frequencies, whatever it is that, you decide on,
right,
then you wouldn't do that. You wouldn't, so maybe that's where that belief forms, is like, I don't have to do that, or I do have to do that.
Right.
I'm not doing it though. I don't want to.
But I was just using that kind of as an example for the Pascal's wager, I guess, to get back to that, is that the wager is kind of, it's already been kind of disproven, because you could say, okay, if there's this Christian God, well, if you believe in the Christian God and then it turns out that the Buddhist God or whoever else, any other of the number of gods that people have believed in history, like if you get it wrong, then it's like not a true dichotomy. It's not like if you believe or don't believe in this one God. It's actually, well, if you only believe in the correct God, which could be many different gods. In the major religions, we got at least two, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Hinduism has a bunch, but I'm just saying, like in the monotheistic religions, being, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, and then you could argue that all of them are really kind of worshiping all the same God, but I'm just saying they have different definitions for their God that are slightly different.
So I did have something to say about that. I believe, so my beliefs have changed over the course of, I started this journey about 11 years old. My daughter's 13 years old. So I remember kind of seeing things that I was living, but I didn't truly agree with. And so what happened was my belief system within myself internally started to change. And it's something that I noticed is that it might not even, it's not just the smacking of the back where the suffering takes place.
Right.
But, that expectation to this God that I was causing myself self-suffering because of it, and so as my beliefs started to change and unravel, so did the way that I operated in the world.
Sure.
And so maybe that's why I'm so open to
Right.
understanding that, because I've had many years where my beliefs started to unravel, and I realized that I was walking in a certain faith that I was told to,
Sure.
but there were things that I didn't agree with as I started to think for myself, if you will.
Right. And I think one thing that's worth mentioning, and not really as any disagreement in what you said, but there are many people who can't escape like we can. We are actually speaking from a privileged position. Do you think that somebody in Egypt can just be like, you know what, this Islam, it ain't the thing, bro?
Yeah.
They literally kill apostates in that
Mhm.
country. So I can fully acknowledge that, hey, we really are, as Americans, being able to speak from a privileged position there. But just throughout the world, there's multiple countries. Some of them would surprise you. It's like, geez,
You
man.
just can't.
Yep.
Yeah. And if you speak against it, yeah, like you said, I don't know how it is right now, it's
Right.
hard, but I know that what they would either kill them or jail them,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, you're exactly right.
So really, like I've already recognized in the, I don't know how many years. I guess I don't really keep count because it's not, for me being an atheist, it's not that important, like how
Mhm.
many years or anything like that. I guess it's been at least a decade or more. But the point is throughout that whole time, I've fully recognized that even doing all of the research and, having the time to even sit and read various books or listen to an audiobook or whatever, to many people is a privilege. For us to even have these discussions is a privilege. And, that should be recognized, that while it is a privilege, that doesn't mean shut up. It means let's use that privilege. That's where
Yes.
I take the challenge, is not, oh, well, because there's a person that really wants to come out as we'll just say a Christian, as well, I guess there's Christians in Egypt that are accepted. I'm sure they're kind of a bit outcast. I'd have to look more into it, but definitely an atheist. If you were an
Mhm.
atheist and an out and out atheist in Egypt, your days are probably numbered. I'm just saying, like,
Yeah.
that
Well,
to me is just crazy that we're even able to just have this long form
makes me grateful.
conversation. Yeah.
So grateful. I mean, it really does. Like, I
Right.
guess, I mean, that took me to a whole nother level of, like you said, we're privileged to be able to sit here and discuss our opinions on it.
Right.
And as well as being in such a different range,
Right.
So, yeah, I'm grateful.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's with so many things going on in the world, and the things changing, that's a pretty big deal.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, I think that that's where I get most disappointed, when somebody who I think is having a good faith conversation kind of just takes it wherever,
mm,
to the bad faith or whatever. It's like, sure, I guess you can do that, but you're kind of just wasting your privilege by doing that. It's like, if the argument's there, make the argument. If you're don't know or whatever, that doesn't mean that you're necessarily wrong. It's just, we are in kind of like the zone of the most logical and the most likely kind of wins it out.
I I've had I did some master courses, like
Mm-hmm.
when I started doing a self-discovery journey and things like that. And I got to work with people from all over the world. There, Australia, New Zealand, the United States, Canada, and we were all in this group. And the really cool thing about it is it was kind of like this, where we were all kind of growing through, personal traumas and things like that, and we were sharing those things.
Sure.
So if you related with it, you related with it. If you didn't, you just kept moving. And that was just an understanding that the group had. um and so I'm kind of grateful that I did get to do that, because it really expanded on I guess more on the, like you said, in different countries and how, they have to believe certain things.
Sure.
It doesn't mean that you can't, grow into your own personal beliefs even through that.
Right.
So I was able to see that and make a lot of friends through that. And again, not have animosity or conflict because somebody wanted me to either believe in all or nothing.
Right.
And so I do have a question.
Sure.
So you say the word faith and then you say that you're atheist. And so I kind of was wondering if you could elaborate on how that is for you in your world.
So in terms of faith, every single person inherently, just because of the usage of the word, uses faith. So faith could be something as innocuous and simple as the analogy that I gave, last time we talked, where if I walk up to a chair, I've seen quite a few chairs, so I can get a pretty good idea or have pretty good faith that a chair that I choose to sit down in is going to hold my weight and isn't going to buckle under my weight. So that would be kind of a evidential and experiential faith. So when I'm talking to somebody who is a believer, what they are typically describing from my perspective being kind of like on the logic side, where I'm saying, I don't think that there's even a logical definition for a God. Better yet, could you prove that an actual God? I can't disprove that a God exists. So for somebody to say, you can prove that a God exists, you've got everything that I have to deal with if I were to be a person to want to disprove a God, which I'm not, but I'm just doing the thought experiment here. Let's say I'm a guy that just really, I just really want to disprove God or whatever.
Yeah.
You have to then disprove any possibility that a God could exist. And just logically, we recognize that we just can't do that. It's impossible. It is called an unfalsifiable hypothesis.
So somebody sent me this TikTok, which is really cool. Maybe we should watch it. But it's talking about the molecular structure of our DNA.
Okay.
And there's 2 strands, and then there's the 10 ladders, 1 ladder, 5 ladder, and then 6 ladders in our DNA. So in each one of our cells, the guy was kind of breaking it down in Hebrew, I think it was, and there's another, I can't remember what the other religion was. But there was just somebody had sent it to me in a messenger, and I thought it was really cool because he like broke it down into how it was spelled. But again, I also don't think that you need to. I believe that our cells are like actively moving. They don't like need us to tell them what to do. We can, but I honestly. So it was kind of a cool. Maybe we can watch that and do a podcast on it or something, and then you can share your opinion and I can share mine. But it was just kind of like you said, some people just like want to prove so bad, and then some people are like wanting to prove so bad that it's right or so bad that it's not.
Sure.
Or so bad that it exists or so bad that it doesn't.
Right.
I don't have that. I believe in personal human connection, and nature. Yeah. So,
I do too. Yeah, so I just want to elaborate. I do too.
That's what. Yeah. So, but if I grew up in the world of the word God, and then I kind of just I am complex, so I like to break it down to a cellular level, and we have so many of them existing within us, and so that's how it works for me. Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
But I guess the thing there is just, while I still, have some of those beliefs that are in opposition, using different ways of thinking, how do I say this? It doesn't really matter who you form as like your inner self. Mm-hmm. People just have different methods of achieving that, essentially, whatever your inner self is. And like, for example, when I was growing up, of course, I was Catholic, so I was always taught that, we really need to follow kind of like whatever the church example is to form our morals or kind of be our moral compass or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then later on, I've, looked more into kind of just moral philosophy and the kind of the history behind that. Really took some interest in a few of the major players, one of them being Immanuel Kant, I like a lot. I know there's been a lot that's come out since him that I think is, improvements upon what he did, but he was just an amazing guy.
What was his main, what made him famous as far as that goes?
He essentially, one of the most famous analogies that I can think of is the law of universals, mm-hmm. essentially saying, well, what if everyone did that? So like, I think, if I explain this to somebody, I say, well, imagine you go through the drive-through, you get done eating, and then you got this bag of trash and you're just like, whatever, driving down the highway and just toss it out. It's like, is that an immoral action by itself? Some people might be mistaken, in my opinion, I guess, in saying, nah, it's just one bag of trash. Well, it's like, well, what if everybody did that?
Then we'd have
yeah. And then you'd be driving down the road, so like trash just flying up in the
freaking tornado trash everywhere. Yeah, no.
Trash-nado. That's the movie we gotta make a trash-nado.
Yeah, you know what? Why not? Because it is. It's just one, but just one adds up.
Right.
And I remember when my kids were younger, I'm really against it. Okay. Like I said, I love Mother Nature.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember my kids when they were younger, they threw trash out. They were old enough to know better, and they knew mom didn't stand for that. And so we went back down to that strip and we cleaned up the trash all the way to the end of Lincoln. And that was just what we did. You guys know better. We don't throw trash out. And some people would think that's kind of harsh, but at the end of the day, like, Mother Earth takes care of us. The soil that's in that ground can create crops, and the tree, oxygen, and we create carbon dioxide for it,
Sure.
So it's a matter of, I guess, having respect for that,
right?
And I know, I wouldn't say it's an immoral act. I think that we.
I'd say it's a safety hazard at some point. At some point, it's a safety hazard.
Yeah.
So that is immoral because you're like harming other people.
Right.
And that's where, like, I think here's another, Immanuel Kant didn't come up with this, obviously, but this is a pretty famous one that we could maybe go down the rabbit hole of. The shopping cart test is like, it costs you nothing, or you get nothing really for, I'll just elaborate what the internet version of it is essentially, you have to put your cart back or whatever, and you get nothing for it. Mm-hmm. And then if you don't do it, have you done really anything wrong? And, a lot of people say, well, it's just a cart, who cares? But then there's this YouTube channel called Cart Narcs, and this guy brings to light, he literally will just walk around these various different shopping areas where there's a bunch of parking lots. Mm-hmm. And he'll just walk up to people and just be like, hey, dude, why didn't you put your cart back? The cart aisle is right over there.
Yeah.
And they'll go over and have various different excuses or whatever. And it's all like, yeah, but, why do you care? It's all like, well, if the wind catches it, the cart will run into somebody's car and, mm-hmm. It's a hassle to others or whatever. And
takes up a whole parking spot, bro.
Right. It also takes up a parking spot. There's like all this. And, granted, you didn't even have to like approach somebody about a cart for them to get mad.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, I'm not surprised that those people are mad, and he doesn't fight them. He literally just runs away from them. Yeah. He just literally runs away every time. He's like, I'm pretty sure I can run faster than you.
He's like, I'm just treading some light. Right. Next time, put your cart away.
Right. And he'll like, I think this is where he kind of goes a little overboard, in my personal opinion, is he'll like take these magnets and like throw it on people's cars if they like just drive off without taking their cart. and it's something like I'm a lazy bones for not taking my cart back or whatever. And people get pretty mad about it.
Well,
But
it's kind of universal though, because
right.
if that cart, like you said, if it gets windy and somebody's driving and that cart starts rolling down, it's gonna hit somebody's car.
Right.
You know? And so he's kind of like he's throwing magnets on their car and they're
Right.
throwing carts at cars.
Right.
So yeah, I like you said, if everybody did that, there'd be no parking spots.
Right. There'd be parking spots for carts.
Exactly. Exactly.
You'd have to have a parking lot for the carts and another parking lot for the cars.
You guys go all the way to the back.
Right.
Grab your card on the way in. You know, things like that. So it wouldn't make much sense. And then that's exactly right. If we all threw garbage out our window, it wouldn't make much sense. Our fields are going to be overloaded with trash, you know, and it affects the water, you know, everything. So I get what we're saying, but like we can't. How do I say this? I guess I can speak my truth, and then there's awareness, or I can walk by and grab the trash that I see, you know, out. But I can't very well change someone to do that.
Right.
So I think going back to what we said at the beginning, where you said, you know, speak up. We have this privilege to be able to do that.
Right.
And that's where that comes in handy.
Sure. But I think that to kind of elaborate more on what we were kind of talking about there about morality, and then we got a little bit sidetracked on that.
I know, because I'm like, I can't.
No, that's fine.
If we could say.
I'm just trying to make sure that we come back to the original point, because otherwise it'll kind of spiral off into other things. So I'm just trying to still have the side conversation, but just keep a mental note of where we were at. Mm-hmm. But what I was getting at there, as far as the morality type thing, is that somebody might ask, just out of curiosity, not to be nefarious or whatever, if they have a personal belief of, well, a God or a Bible or a Quran, or you name whatever their belief structure is, a lot of them also have kind of this baked in moral structure in it. And I've had people ask me, is like, well, what do you base your moral structure on? And I don't think that's really that elaborate or difficult. And I'm willing to explain it right now. So
I would love to hear it.
So if one could imagine a universe in which every single living thing throughout the entire universe is in agony all the time. You have existence. You're just literally in utmost agony you could possibly imagine at all times. That is the least moral I can imagine of a universe, because I base mine upon human suffering and also human prosperity. Mm-hmm. So if there was another universe, let's keep that one there, right? Suffering, it sucks. Yes. But you've got another universe in which for 1 second, and we'll call it a year because that's easy for us to understand, but we all know that that's a concept that we all came up with. But we'll say a year, right?
Yes.
So for 1 second out of a year, everybody has total bliss. We'll even expand it to, say, 10 seconds. We'll give them a little bit. Yay! Everybody's, yay! Gave us 10 seconds. That would be a slightly more moral universe than the previous one.
Right.
And you can then take it as like a full spectrum, which I'm now have to elaborate in all the things we've been talking about. Morality is not binary. It's not either explicitly moral or explicitly immoral. There's like a spectrum of morality, and there's also a spectrum of belief. Mm-hmm. So that's one other thing that now, because we're, and this is something that I think that a lot of the public like freaked out on when sexuality is a spectrum. We're finding that humanity in general and the things that we think are a spectrum. It's not a binary thing. It's not easy to just analyze and say, oh yeah, that's immoral. You know, it's more than that. Mm-hmm. You have to make some real careful thought. Sometimes there's some easy ones all involve kind of the human suffering element. don't kill nobody. Don't
Yeah.
assault people. That's
Right.
easy. Even a child can figure this out. A baby, maybe, could even figure this out, that that's wrong to hurt people. Maybe, actually, I think that's scientifically untrue. They don't get their reasoning centers until a certain age.
Well, I guess my spectrum would be human beings, so I can take those and separate them. So, some people would, I personally, on a mistake level, where I came from and the world that I came from was very much so like the agony aspect that you were talking about, as far as, morale and belief go.
Sure.
But there was a shift, and I didn't want it that way. I didn't want to bring that to my children and things like that. So
Sure.
I had to seek the spectrum. If I'm really gonna that's how this is working. I really had to seek the spectrum differently, because I was looking for love in all the wrong places. I was, saying the things that everyone said to me growing up to myself now as an adult, and
Sure.
then like it was affecting my parenting and things like that. And I really wanted it to be different. So I had to seek a different spectrum. And that's when that unfolding of belief started taking place. I really started journaling and writing these things out. And I don't believe we came here to suffer. I really don't.
Yeah, I
I
agree.
believe we came here to connect with each other. I did go through some things that made me not care to. I was hurt, very hurt, by people
Sure.
I truly care about. But I did find strength in that after I isolated myself from connection, but truly deep down inside, morality, as far as I was concerned, there, a human connection was it. And I didn't want to push the people I love away, because when I went through that isolation of not caring to connect with people, that's exactly what I did. I didn't
Sure.
want to hurt them. I didn't want to hurt me, but it kind of did,
Right.
but that was my human form. It was, and I've also, had a moment where there was like some suffering being taken out on somebody that was trying to support the other person, and through my PTSD, I had a human experience and freaked out, but not staying there and beating myself up over it. And as amazing as it is, me and that person were able to work through that like a month later.
Sure.
And come to each other and be like, yo, thank you for helping me learn through this and grow. Thank you for helping me learn through this and grow.
Mm-hmm.
But without flexibility, that relationship would no longer be existing.
Sure.
And so understanding that we both had that human experience and be able to bring our human being selves together in that is kind of how I would explain that for myself.
Sure. Yeah. One thing that I've learned, I guess, in the past couple years is that it's not particularly fruitful to assume malice. Sometimes, and throwing this charged word in here, but in good faith, sometimes it truly is just ignorance, or we could use this as a good opportunity to jump into the free will discussion.
Oh, yay. This has been coming up a lot in our world.
Sure. So I don't believe in what we call, or what a lot of people call, a libertarian free will. And I have reasons for this. Is one of them is just true because inherently of your position in the world or social economic status, what country you live in, all that already in and of itself means you can't really choose to do anything. You really are kind of stuck within some sort of a box.
Yeah. I mean, you definitely. I know that I want to have like certain. I truly believe that it's limitless, but I know that I want to have certain limits or boundaries, you know.
Sure.
Without them, you're open to absolutely everything.
Right.
I don't want to be open to everything. I was at one point, you know.
Sure.
And there was a point where I didn't know my boundaries because of it and things like that. But as I guess went through life experience, I decided that I was going to have my own regulations.
Sure.
But then we also have, you know, the laws that are taking place, the judicial system. That was something that I told you before.
Right.
I was kind of forced into learning my rights,
Sure.
you know, which I'm truly grateful for because it helped me when I did have to go to court.
Yeah.
But nobody directed me there. Nobody was like, you know, hey, this is going to help you out. It was more of I wasn't getting assistance where I thought that I would in the courthouse. And so I went on my own and seeked that. So you're right. I guess we're all navigating in this world of our own morals.
Sure.
And laws of nature, as well as man-made laws.
Right. So, and I think extending beyond that too is like, so I can use this example. My son and I wanted to, because he was getting upset about like, and I don't want to go too far into it, but he was getting upset about something that we'll just call a first world problem. Mm-hmm. And, it's been kind of like a theme. So I said, well, how do I teach him that, like, yes, it's okay to be upset if you don't get your way or whatever. It's not bad to feel upset about a thing as long as you don't let it rule your life. But at the same time, how do I kind of explain to him, like, you got it good, dude, you know? So we sat down and we watched this documentary of these lost children in Calcutta, which is in India. And he was, I'm getting to my point here. I had to kind of like build it up there. But so there was these kids and it was all in subtitles, so I had to read it. And the one kid, just paraphrasing here, said that, you know, we've been lost by everyone. We don't have parents. We don't have money. We don't have food. And we're all addicted to drugs, he says. And they were over there. I don't know what it was. It looked honestly kind of like just a branch, but who knows what it was. I just don't know their culture or what types of stuff is out there. But point is, the kid was smoking something, right? Mm-hmm. For a brief little shot there. And he's all like, don't they know that smoking's not good for you? You know, why are they smoking right now? And I just explained to him, I was like, buddy, they have never had anybody teach them that.
Yeah.
You know, they have no idea. They don't have parents. They literally have no clue what is good or bad for them, other than if I don't eat, I'm hungry. If I don't drink water, I drink water. And they learn more, like picking up bottles. They can go maybe take it to a recycling center to get a few extra coins to go get some street food or whatever. And the point is, talking about free will, do those kids truly have free will to not be on drugs? To not?
Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
They're what is the word? I want to say inhabited to that village, you know, and in
these are literally train tracks. They're in a train station, living there. That really? Is, yeah, it's wild.
Yeah.
I mean, I hadn't seen the documentary, so I was kind of also surprised, obviously.
Yeah.
It was a really good one. I'll have to send it to you, but it was just mind-blowing that this is a civic center where people are walking around in business suits. And there are these kids who have been orphaned by their families for various reasons. Mm-hmm. Maybe they're dead. Maybe they moved to the city and just couldn't take a kid, or whatever the reason.
I couldn't just walk by. There's no way.
What? And there's,
bro, get in the car.
And I'm just saying, there's this. I think he was a priest, pastor, priest. I think he was a Catholic priest, but I can't quite recall off the top of my head because it was on Saturday. But the guy was just like, you know, for lack of a better term, I don't believe in saints, but the guy's a freaking saint, man. Like, he is out there taking care of the kids. Like
Yeah.
he dedicates his whole friggin' life
I would go there. I want
to take care of these kids.
Yeah.
And what kind of, just for a side note, I don't want to get us off track here, but just a side note, what kind of an asshole would I be to just be like, well, that guy's Catholic, so screw that guy or whatever? No, some people might.
Yeah.
I'm not that way, though. Just because I don't have a belief in Catholicism, oh my gosh, like obviously this guy is freaking awesome out there doing great things for these kids who literally have no one. They literally get ear infections because they're sleeping on trash. You know?
I think it's well beautiful that he's taking care of them, but
Right.
also beautiful that that doesn't define us, you know. To be able to, you know, see the genuine choice that he made to take care of those kids and stop and give them some attention.
Right.
That they may not even know that they were craving. They're just surviving, you know. I mean, if I could take them and put them in a thriving environment, I think many of us would.
Sure.
And then some of us would probably just walk by and turn our heads to it.
That's true. I mean, the how many of those people do that on a daily basis? Because in the societal structure, which I am not claiming to know like India's whole societal structure, I just am saying from observations. And I know they have a caste system, so that's probably about as far as I go as far as knowledge of how their whole system is. I don't want to presume to know. But from what I recognize, it's like, what are the societal incentives that allow it so that those children live in that squalor, period? Like what is ultimately really truly being done there? And maybe it's I don't know if it's a case of corruption. I don't know if it's maybe they're just spread too thin. I really don't know what the answer is, but I'm just saying, regardless of whether it's on purpose or not on purpose, that's an immoral outcome. And who are we to not just be like constantly trying to do something to better that just in our general world? It's almost like we're always caught up, like for an example in America, as a society, we're always caught up in these kind of like very small reaching and individualistic type of discussions, when it's like, guys, I'm open to us having the discussion, and many different discussions can be had at once. So I get that. It's not like it's a false dichotomy where, oh, if we talk about this, we can't talk about that or whatever. But I'm just saying there's not enough talk being had of just
like that.
These bigger things. Why are we spending so much money and resources on like the things that we focus on when it's mismanaged? Let's be honest, like grossly mismanaged and unbelievably unproductive. It is productive to our benefit, I guess. So we're speaking once again from a privileged position, but I would feel immoral for not pointing out that even though I have that privilege, there are many, many holes in this freaking bucket. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
conversations
holy
that need to be
cow.
had.
Sure.
Yeah. So, I mean, there's many things that we could do with it, with, what we have. I mean, I know not all of us have like that, way down there, or, certain little general things as far as that goes. But
Sure.
There's a building that could be built down there, I'm sure. There is many mothers down there. It's that awareness of, well, like you said, we do have it pretty well. And with having that, I would like to share that with people. You know what I mean? Like whether it be kids that need some food, or
Right.
a housing,
And,
or
yeah.
a place to thrive, or just to know that there's more than just that. Like after you're in that survival of just, trying to get food from anywhere that you can, God, I would love to build a school that shows them that there's so much more.
Sure.
Really. I got goosebumps
Yeah.
talking about it.
And it doesn't escape me either. Like, I don't want to forget there's a lot, even in this country, there's a lot of poverty and suffering and squalor and etc. And I guess the thing in the process of just trying to learn morality from, like, not like saying I'm a scholar necessarily on the subject, but I've done enough research into the actual scholarly material, like looking at, Stanford encyclopedias and things like that for, Plato and, for Immanuel Kant, for example. The whole thing, kind of road that this has got me on, is like, how do you make better arguments? So, like, let's talk about good arguments here.
Okay.
A good argument for our country right now is whatever the societal system may be, right? We don't have to, like, say in this statement we're solving the problem. We're just saying we need to first recognize, right? This is the AA thing, right? I've never been through AA, but I've heard this a number of times. The first step is recognizing there's a problem, right? Yeah. So I'm just saying the first step is, why the hell do we got so many homeless people?
Right.
What the heck, guys? Mm-hmm. And then you also have this observation of, wow, look at all these houses around here. Mm-hmm. So you can take those two things and just be like, what system incentivizes it so that these homeless people don't get some of these houses?
Right.
We don't have to, like, say, hey, this guy owns the house and you are I'm just saying, like, from a human suffering element, if you argue anything in support of a system that keeps these homeless people away from houses, whether it be those houses or houses that we build or whatever, whatever the argument may be, it's a non-starter. You are less moral than my argument of saying those people should have houses. Period. End of subject.
Opportunity. I truly believe that if there was a space for opportunity and hope and faith is what, if we could give them opportunity, opportunity to come make some money, or an opportunity. I used to go to Valley Shelter when I was younger. I got taken away. I was 15, and it was a girls' home and a boys' home, 2 different houses on Marquette. And I'm not even sure they have those anymore. But I lived there with, kids that were taken away for 3 years in a row and things like that. So it's, a lot of people just look at it like they're not trying to do anything, or there's this or that. If I want to give somebody $5 and whatever they decide that they want to do with it, that's up to them. But I have had so many people question me about, that particular thing. And so I think that.
Can I make a quick comment on that?
Yeah.
So this is something that I just recently had to deal with, and I'm not going to get down this rabbit hole, but like with this whole J.K. Rowling business and like Hogwarts Legacy, I'm just going to repeat it again. Mm-hmm. There is no ethical consumption in capitalism, period. So anybody that you give money to for any reason can take that money and do whatever with it, whether you think that's a moral thing or not. Mm-hmm. It's inherent of the system. So if somebody wants to argue about, well, this person is going to take this money and do something wrong, well, why don't you argue about, like, Hobby Lobby taking money and stealing religious artifacts? Why are you not arguing about the Waltons owning Walmart and not paying their workers so their workers are on poverty wages?
Johnson.
And I mean, I'm just saying we could go down for almost forever on this list.
Really?
So you're going to go argue this most likely homeless person who might be an addict, and who gives a crap? Like, why is the person an addict is usually the question you should be asking, not that, point at them and say that you're an addict or put them in jail where they don't get help.
Well, morally speaking, as in my world, That is like one thing that everybody wants to point their finger at as far as that goes. But just, it's not just addiction isn't just that.
Right.
It's not just drugs.
Right.
It's literally food. It's, loving a dramatic, toxic situation. It's, you know what I'm saying? There's so
Right.
many things that it could be, but then there's this zone in on that.
Right.
And really, I truly believe it's because that's been put in our face, but in our reality, there's so many more addictions other than that.
Right.
And what happened, for for them to turn to that, you know what I mean? They don't
Right.
want to feel the pain.
Right.
We do random things, I would sometimes I choose distractions so that I don't have to feel so overwhelmed. You know
Right.
what I'm saying? So like on a different spectrum of that, the judgment can shove it.
So here's the thing that you can like scale that. You can scale that. So people want to say, what brought X person to X? We'll just say it doesn't even matter what you say in those X positions, because I play video games to kind of unwind sometimes and just have something to like relax on or escape, right? It's called escapism. Every person pretty well does this in some way, shape, or form. So if a person could imagine, well, I watch football because it helps me just kind of escape my job and my regular daily life and whatever the reason may be, it's escapism. I watch a movie, I watch TV show, I play an instrument, whatever the case may be. Could you also now imagine somebody who has so much inner turmoil or a life situation that's highly stressful that they need a little bit more than a football game to escape?
Mm-hmm. Or I could imagine you having a video game thing set up and like, hey, come have fun.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Opportunity though. That's it. Is opportunity. Like I didn't know I had the opportunity to seek my own. I didn't know that until I actually did it. You know what I'm saying? It wasn't something that was presented to me. And if we were able to, I really believe that that's something we should inherit into our school system, just because we all do come from different backgrounds. Some
Sure.
of us have, those backgrounds where, the emotional intelligence wasn't, I thought my parents hated me. You know what I'm saying? I really did. But then in all reality, as I grew up, I realized that they didn't know how to be happy in certain situations. So it really wasn't, but in my 7-year-old mind, I took it and,
Sure.
and it ran, until I took those, I decided that I needed to feel better about myself because it was leaking over into my offspring, my children.
Right.
And so, but not everybody knows that. That's stuff that we could be teaching in school. And how do we stress manage? How do we treat ourselves good in those situations? Those things, I want to see more of that in the world. And that's why I do like inspiring videos, and I have chosen in this last few years to put as many out as I can to change the algorithm, because
Sure.
we're presented with so much information and opinions and so if I can inspire the world so that there's opportunity, then I do.
Good. Yeah, I think that's a good outlook on it. And that's, I think, where I'm at, as far as the majority of my hobbies is just to try to change something for the better, like, is it going to be like big scale? Probably not. But if it's just one person or one situation that maybe was better because of an influence, then I'm all for it. I think that, it's a case where too many people, I think, are just kind of in this fight or flight mode, and
It's not easy.
I get it. And I'm not saying that, I'm not saying that I'm not empathetic to that, because I've certainly been in that situation numerous times. whether it be financially or just family stress or, person passing away that is really meaningful to you, whatever the case may be. I think that taking a step back and trying to kind of think about the situation from or first off, some people maybe just suppress it. They just I don't even want to deal with this. And then it festers for a while and becomes like a bigger thing. Like you may not even consciously realize that you're under that level of stress, or, like you had said in your situation, kind of like you're in a state of psychosis where you don't recognize certain ways or things that you're doing. And I think that, having a regular, I mean, daily probably wouldn't hurt, but just a regular day thing where you really try to take a second or two to really capture your thoughts unhindered by a screen or some sort of escapism, whatever it may be, a TV show, going, and I guess there are some activities that you can do and still think, but I do think that at least once a week or on a somewhat regular basis, you really should try to just sit down and think about what has transpired. Because some of those thoughts, maybe it's kind of a case of, okay, well, that's kind of a no big deal. Let's just move on from that. But not processing it or not giving yourself time to process it and then building up at, stress, it puts you in a different state of mind. And that's where I'm kind of, once again, going back to the analogy of free will.
Yay.
If you're super stressed, are you going to be making the best decisions?
No. Well, I mean,
you probably still will make some good decisions.
If you got a flight, you're gonna flight. You know what I mean? You're gonna do what you need to do. It was something during my psychosis. Like I didn't have an opportunity to feel fear, but after I got to the other side and I was in psychosis, I was still being a mom, and I made sure my kids had food. Kind of thing. But as far as like big decision making, no, I literally shut it off. And then when you're trying to make a decision in an overly stressful, situation, I've noticed that I'm just making decisions trying to survive. Sure. And then it kept me there, and so as far as like taking that once a week, something that has evolved with my practices is that if I'm doing something that I'm fully focused in, I utilize that as meditation as well. So like, let's say I'm painting a picture, and that's like one activity that I'm focusing on, kind of like where they, you're doing your meditation and they say focus on your breath. So I utilize that now, which is something that I did because I was a busy mom. And sure. Once I came out of it, I had a lot to catch up on. Literally, like, it was a phase of not caring about the laws. And I mean, there was a lot of bounce back that Miss Cori B had to do. And so I started utilizing those things, and in that recovery as meditation.
Sure.
So my writing, my painting, playing a game with the kids, you know what I mean? That one object of focus.
Sure. And I think that my first introduction to kind of meditation is from Sam Harris, which I had told you about him last time. I like Sam Harris's podcast. I do agree quite a bit with Sam Harris, but there are a few things, like, for example, I think he wrote a few articles on torture that were just dead wrong and quite frankly, a bit offensive at the time. But I'm just saying, I'm trying to go to it as a good faith, type of situation of the majority of the things that I hear him talking about are interesting to me. But he is pretty big into meditation. He even studied under, I'm not like into the scene or anything like that, but quite a few reputable monks who have kind of taught it as a practice. That's like their livelihood and, their practice. He even was privileged enough to take a hiatus, right, from public life. He explains it kind of in his podcast or whatever a few times, but that was my first introduction to it. And I don't think that for me, I've really ever been like fully on in the way he's explaining it, or I've heard other people explain it, like actually meditating where I'm kind of like able to feel disembodied or anything like that. But one thing that helped me particularly is this the specific mindfulness portion of it. And what I think I've come to realize is that I really just in general am often in my headspace anyway. Like I work as an engineer and, I still work with my hands. I mean, you've seen the garage and, I sometimes have to put in work. That's kind of why I have dirty hands right now. But it's not that I can't be in the physical space, but I'm always really kind of in this mental space, sometimes thinking of a couple things, because I'm, have ADD. So I'm always having to juggle these 30 different TV screens that are going on all at once and really saying, okay, you guys go over here. I really have to work today, type of situation. So for me, I think that I'm not saying it's impossible because I'm sure it's possible. And maybe I should try a little bit more, but I'm really always practicing a mindfulness because just once again, my job, I have to. Mm-hmm. There's safety situations that I really need to be thinking of in my headspace of, if I program this way, is that really safe? Do I want to have a situation where this guy gets hurt or this gal, gets hurt because of something that I didn't think of? So I'm just always kind of juggle those. And it's not always super stressful like that. A lot of times it's just something innocuous and there's not really any safety implications, but to get complacent could, in fact, it can cause somebody to either be really, really mad and no harm done, or slightly annoyed, no harm done, or actual harm done. So to me, I've always just kind of, since I've been in that mode as like a maintenance person and then now an engineer, I'm always in my headspace. So I'm kind of almost in a way, first off, definitely trying my best to be mindful, which of course everybody's not perfect. Nobody can be like amazingly mindful at any given time, but I'm just saying like maybe I'm in a half meditation when I'm doing my work and coding and thinking about what I'm going to have for supper or whatever.
So it kind of brings it back to the free will for me, as you're explaining that, because you, like you said, that you're like in between as far as that goes. But the fact that you care, like I want to make sure that nobody gets hurt under my watch.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And I get that from a heart space. I have definitely developed the logical aspect of things in my journey. Man, it took some brief experiences with that for me to, because there was a time that I kind of inherently like pushed it out. I felt kind of hurt by it, and so I was kind of like rejecting it a little bit. But through life experience, I decided that I'd be more open to it. And
just skepticism maybe?
Yeah, well,
okay.
like the logical mind,
sure,
leaving the heart out of it, kind of thing. You know what I'm saying?
Mr. Spock.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but I do. Where was I going with that? It's about caring, really.
Sure.
For me, so maybe that's what it is, because you could shut that off and just not care. You know what I mean? And go in there and do a half-ass job and not care, but you don't want to do that.
Some people do.
You care, and
I
think that's, so it's kind of cool that we're explaining it from two different sides again,
sure.
because I care for my heart. I really want to be able to do as much as I can, but I also don't want to enable like my children. So I got from my heart space, I'm gonna step back a little bit. You know, it's more logical now, I guess. But yeah, it's because I care that gives me that reason to want to be mindful. And, you know, like you said, logically, you want to make sure nobody gets hurt.
Sure.
So I think caring has some role in that.
Right. And I mean, that doesn't mean that a guy doesn't make mistakes.
Yeah, we all
but
do.
it's not like through like once I guess it goes like some of these rules just kind of like keep getting brought up. It's just like don't assume malice.
Yeah.
So
It's simplicity, you
right.
know? It's kind of crazy that I went to just like caring as far as that goes.
Right.
And mindfulness, you know, that's simple.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we've probably like covered quite a bit there. Do you have any, and it's only an hour and 16 minutes, but, I was going to say, do you have kind of some final thoughts?
Do I have final thoughts?
And I guess this doesn't have to be the only one. We could have like a part 2 or something at some point, but
for sure. I know that we've talked about free will, morals, broad range of, you know, all and nothing. I really don't. I think that it's absolutely amazing that we can, you know, learn from each other and the uniqueness that we are.
Sure.
And not try to mold each other to be who we are or who I am or who you are. You know, I think it's beautiful to see that and really experience that. And I wish that for us.
Sure.
All.
Yeah, and I think that I go back to the time and place thing. So just because said certain things here or had, you know, certain discussions here, it doesn't mean like I'm attacking somebody's faith. You know, if that's your way of coming to your best self, then, and you're doing it for the purpose of trying your best to be good, just a good person in general, then go for it. I'm saying the only reason we're even having this discussion right now, or I'm saying the things that I'm saying, is because this is the right forum. We both agreed to be here. I'm not like forcing you to be here or whatever. No. And it's my house. So I kind of am forced here to be here, but
this is fun though.
But yeah, I'm just saying it's like, I'm not trying to specifically attack faith, just belief. I think that's what I would prefer to call it, because once again, faith, if you start calling it faith, then you run into the semantic game of like, well, what are you talking about? Religious belief? Or are you talking about faith in, you know, innocuous things like, is a chair going to hold my weight? Mm-hmm. So I would say really the discussion just has to do with belief. I have a certain way that I have come to conclusions on. I'm not mad at anything or person or whatever in particular. I don't have like any stake in the game to just be like, man, we got to turn everybody into atheists, darn it, you know, or anything like that. It's just, if we're in the discussion, I'm a guy that likes to get to the meat and potatoes of the discussion. I have kind of because I served in the Marines and I'm also an engineer, kind of a no bullshit type of attitude when it comes to that, not trying to hurt anybody's feelings or anything. But if somebody doesn't ask the logical question, whichever way it's portrayed or delivered, then we're kind of wasting all of our time, in my opinion, if you're in like that mode. But
I can understand that, just, you know, from the faith, that word, just one word, you know, as far as that goes, you know, there's so many people in the world that have their own perspective.
Sure.
Of that.
Everybody has their own perspective, really.
Yeah, and so to be able to sit in the room together and have open-mindedness to that. Like I said, that space to be yourself and be present in your truths, man, it's priceless.
Sure. And yeah, I guess more could be said. Maybe we'll have to have. I know that Johnny Moss said that he was interested in having the similar discussion. So maybe we can schedule a third person or a fourth person to come in. But I just wanted to kind of have the initial discussion just for, I didn't, I guess, tell you this before, but I haven't done a Smoogley podcast for quite a long time. And, I'm kind of moving that podcast from like my personal channel to the Squeeze Box. I'm just kind of like making the Squeeze Box all general, kind of intellectual pursuit, and especially the arts. I've had my friend, Harley Ramsey is his pen name. I've had him on, my channel and did kind of like a thing with him. And I tried to get around and talk with musicians and stuff like that. So this discussion is just one that we had that I thought was interesting, but really this podcast is just all about having these long form discussions. If a disagreement or a friendly debate comes about it, then great. But it could also be a completely non-debate, just having a fun, carefree conversation.
Yeah.
And to leave it open like that instead of, a lot of times we'll notice, especially kind of in the streaming sphere. And I'm not hating on it. I'm saying I watch it, right?
Yeah,
so it's entertaining, but it's always kind of this opposite. Hey, I heard you said this, so let's go debate it, bro.
Well, I watched the Philosophize. What is it? Philosophy?
Yeah, Philosophize this.
Yes. So one of the podcasts that I watched, it was talking. I mean, it really went into detail.
That guy's awesome.
It was a whole rabbit hole, but he was talking about like, what if everything in the universe has its own consciousness and we're all trying to like figure this thing out? And it was amazing how he unraveled it and was like, that's a frog. And I don't know what it's like to be a frog,
Sure.
And so, it's just something to think about. I mean, it doesn't have to be an argument or a conflict. You don't even have to, if it doesn't resonate with you, leave it. I would rather you leave it as far as that goes.
Right.
So, and if it resonates, it resonates. If I hear something that you say that's like, hold on, I kind of want to look into that, then great. That's the unique of sharing those things. So it doesn't have to be taken personal.
Sure. So, that's all I think that I had, but do you have anything? You're like doing music and stuff, right? Do you want to like share any socials or anything like that?
Yes. I got Cori and music on my page.
Okay.
I also have, like, if somebody's starting a new business right now, we have some marketing and advertising that we're doing. You can do 1 month, 3 months, and then 12, 16 months, things like that. So I would love to put that out there because I know that advertising is a big part of, starting a new business or if you have an existing business. And so we're really just trying to free that time up for the business owners so they can focus more on their production.
Sure.
So it's Cori Barker on Facebook if you guys want to reach out to me. And and any holistic health, like I said, meditation. I also go down the rabbit hole of holistic remedies. So, if there's something that somebody's struggling with or they're just seeking advice on that, I would love to go down that rabbit hole too, because it's interesting to me.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to switch to the audience. So if this is content that you like, please hit the like and subscribe button. Check us out on Facebook. We're on YouTube, and we also stream on Twitch. Sometimes it's a podcast. Sometimes it's me playing video games really badly. But I really want to kind of like have more of these conversations. And I thought that moving the Smoogley Podcast over to the Squeeze Box kind of gives that avenue, because I feel like the Fresh Squeeze Podcast, it's really more of kind of like a current events type thing. We just pick 6 current events. Sometimes they're funny, sometimes they're kind of sad, but this here is just kind of like open discussion, let's talk it out, and I think that here coming up, it's still kind of in the mix, so I don't want to fully announce the details, but the subject that I will potentially be having a conversation on video about is AI and how it's going to affect the music industry in particular. And
That'll be interesting.
I won't share my, maybe if you add me on Facebook, you can see a few of my opinions on that I've shared recently. But that being said, yeah, let's have some more of these conversations. Let's get people talking, because you can't understand unless you talk, right?
Truth.
You have to listen to be able to understand, and you have to talk and feel listened to sometimes to feel understood. So
yeah, it has been a pleasure. Seriously.
heck yeah, it's been a pleasure as well.
Yes.
All right.
Much love, guys. Many blessings.
Thanks for watching.